The SOS that summoned the Deathworlders' fleet of Retribution against aliens, Captain Jiho sat in his command chair, aboard the research vessel Horizon's Edge, watching the stars drift past the view screen. It was a quiet night shift, the kind he usually enjoyed. His crew of 43 moved through their routines with practiced ease. They had been stationed at the edge of explored space for 6 months now, cataloging stellar phenomena and collecting data that would take years to fully analyze. The year was 2287, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 47 years. It still felt new. The other species, the ones who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, still looked at humans like children who had just learned to walk. Sometimes they were kind about it. Often they were not. Lieutenant Taeyang was monitoring the communications array when his screen lit up with unusual activity. He was young, only 26, but he had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange." Jiho turned his chair toward the communications station. "Define strange. It's a distress signal, sir." "But it's fragmented, like someone was transmitting and got cut off." Taeyang's fingers danced across his console. "The signal is weak, very weak. I'm surprised we caught it at all." Dr. Hana emerged from the laboratory section, her white coat still bearing chemical stains from her latest xenobiology experiment. She had been with Jiho for 5 years, and he trusted her judgment completely.
"Can you clean it up?"
Taeyang nodded, already working. "Give me a few minutes." Those few minutes stretched into 20. The bridge crew gathered around the communication station as Taeyang filtered out interference and boosted the signal. When he finally played it, the bridge fell silent. The voice was not human. It spoke in clicks and whistles, a language that sounded like wind through hollow reeds, but the emotion behind it needed no translation. It was terror. "That's Velrin," Dr. Hana said quietly. She had studied their language during her xenobiology training. "They're a peaceful species, herbivores. They're known across the galaxy for their art and philosophy." "Can you translate it?" Jiho asked. Hana moved to a spare console and began running the audio through the translation database. Her face went pale as the words appeared on the screen. "Captain, you need to see this." Jiho read the translated text and his blood went cold. "They came without warning. We have no weapons. They are taking our children. Taking them away. Colony Theta 9, please, please, anyone, help us. They are taking the children." The message ended abruptly, cut off mid-word. "When was this sent?" Jiho demanded. 12 hours ago, Taeyang replied. "It's been bouncing around subspace. We just happened to be in the right position to catch it." Jiho stood and paced the bridge. His mind raced through possibilities, protocols, and procedures. "Send the message to Galactic Coalition headquarters. Mark it urgent. Then plot a course to Colony Theta 9, sir." Taeyang looked uncertain. "Shouldn't we wait for Coalition authorization?" "Send the message," Jiho repeated. "But start the calculations. I want to be ready to move." The response from Coalition headquarters arrived 3 hours later. Jiho read it twice, hoping he had misunderstood. He had not. Message received. "We are convening an emergency session to discuss jurisdiction and appropriate response protocols. Please stand by for further instructions. Do not proceed without authorization. Estimated response time, 6 to 8 standard cycles. 6 to 8 cycles." That was 6 to 8 days in human time. Dr. Hana stood beside his chair. 6 days, she said softly. "In 6 days, those children will be gone. Wherever they were taken, whatever is happening to them." She did not finish. She did not need to. Jiho looked around his bridge. His crew watched him, waiting. They knew what he was thinking. They knew what he wanted to do. They also knew what it would cost him if he disobeyed direct orders from the Coalition. "Captain," Taeyang said, "I'm picking up another transmission. It's on the same frequency as the first one. Play it." This message was even shorter. The voice was different. Older perhaps, and so weak it was barely audible even after filtering. It spoke only a few words. Dr. Hana translated them with shaking hands. "Coordinates." And one word. The word means mercy. Jiho made his decision. Lieutenant Taeyang set course for Colony Theta 9, maximum speed. "Sir," the Coalition said. "I know what they said." Jiho's voice was calm but hard as steel. "And in 6 days when they finish their meeting, they can send me a memo about it." Helm engage. The Horizon's Edge turned and leaped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines of light around them. Dr. Hana approached Jiho's chair quietly. They'll court-martial you for this. Maybe, Jiho agreed. But I can live with a court-martial. I can't live with knowing we heard children screaming for help and did nothing because we were waiting for permission. We're a research vessel, Hana pointed out. We have minimal weapons. We have no Marines. If whoever took those children is still there, then we'll figure it out. Jiho looked at her steadily. Would you rather turn around? Hana smiled, though her eyes were worried. No, Captain. I would not. The journey to Colony Theta 9 took 18 hours at maximum speed. 18 hours during which the crew of the Horizon's Edge prepared for what they might find. They had some weapons, defensive systems meant to ward off pirates or hostile wildlife. They were not soldiers. They were scientists and explorers, but they were also human, and humans had long memories of what happened when good people did nothing. Lieutenant Taeyang monitored communications constantly, hoping for another message, any sign that the Velrun were still alive. There was nothing, only silence. Coming up on Colony Theta 9, the helm officer reported, dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The Horizon's Edge emerged back into normal space, and the view screen showed them what remained of the Velrun colony. Dr. Hana gasped. Several crew members looked away. The colony had been built on a peaceful moon orbiting a gas giant. It should have been beautiful. The Velrun loved gardens and open spaces. They built their homes to blend with nature, not dominate it. But the gardens were burning. The homes were torn open like someone had ripped through them with massive claws. Scorch marks blackened the ground. And everywhere there was silence. Life signs? Jiho asked quietly. Taeyang scanned. I'm detecting, yes, faint life signs, underground, multiple contacts. They're hiding. Take us down. Landing area closest to those life signs. And broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them we're here to help. The Horizon's Edge descended through smoke and ash. As they landed, Jiho looked at his crew. I need a team. Volunteers only. Every single person on the bridge raised their hand. Jiho felt something tight in his chest loosen just slightly. Dr. Hana, you're with me. Taeyang organized the others. Medical supplies, emergency rations, translation equipment. We're going to find those survivors. As they prepared to leave the ship, Jiho sent one more message to Earth Fleet Command. It was short and simple. They took children. We're going after them. Then he led his team down the ramp and into the ruins of Colony Theta 9, unaware that his message would change everything, unaware that he had just lit a fuse that would ignite humanity's first war among the stars. The SOS that summoned the Deathworlders' fleet of Retribution against aliens. The underground shelter was dark and smelled of fear. Captain Jiho and his team had found the entrance hidden beneath rubble and broken stone. Dr. Hana went first, speaking gentle words in the Velrun language, announcing that they were friends, that they had come to help. The Velrun who emerged from the shadows were a people broken by terror. They were tall and thin, with soft gray fur and large dark eyes made for seeing in dim forest light. Their hands trembled. Their voices shook. There were perhaps 40 of them, huddled together in a space meant for half that number. An elder Velrun stepped forward. His fur was streaked with white, and he moved like someone much older than he probably was. You came, he whispered in broken coalition standard language. You actually came. We got your message, Jiho said. Tell me what happened. The story came out in pieces between sobs and long silences. The Velrun had lived here peacefully for 30 years. They grew food. They made art. They bothered no one. 3 days ago, ships had appeared in the sky without warning. Ships like nothing they had ever seen. All sharp angles and dark metal. The ships had landed and things had come out. The Velrun called them Krathul. They were bipedal but hunched, with thick scales and eyes that reflected light like a predator's. They carried weapons that stunned instead of killed. They had not come for resources or land. They had come for the Velrun themselves. Specifically, they had come for the children. They took 73 of our young ones, the elder said, and his voice broke completely. We tried to stop them. We have no weapons. We have never needed weapons. They pushed us aside like we were nothing. They laughed while they took our children. Dr. Hana was recording everything, her face carefully neutral even though Jiho could see the rage building behind her eyes. Did they say why? Did they say anything at all? Only one thing, another Velrun said. She was younger, with a bandage wrapped around her arm. One of them spoke to us. He said we should feel honored. He said our children would serve the Krathel Dominion. He said they would become something greater than what they were. Corporal Minho, one of the security officers Jiho had brought, spoke up. Genetic experimentation. It's in the Coalition database. The Krathel are known for it, but there's never been enough evidence to bring charges. Until now, Jiho said grimly. They spent 2 hours documenting everything. Engineer Yuna, who specialized in digital systems, managed to access what remained of the colony's security network. The footage was fragmentary, damaged by the attack, but what they found was more than enough. The Krathel had been efficient and brutal. They had swept through the colony in waves, stunning anyone who resisted, ignoring those who fled. They went directly for the schools and nurseries. The footage showed children being carried away, crying for parents who could not reach them. One clip showed a Velran parent throwing herself at a Krathel soldier, trying desperately to reach her child. The Krathul had simply swatted her away, and she hit the ground hard enough to break bones. Another soldier had laughed. The audio had captured it clearly. Copy all of this, Jiho ordered. Every byte. I want it backed up 3 times. Yuna nodded, her jaw tight with anger. Already on it, sir. Medical Officer Hyun was treating the survivors, though their injuries were mostly emotional rather than physical. The Krathul had not wanted to damage them permanently. They had just wanted them compliant and afraid. Jiho stepped outside the shelter and activated his communicator. Horizon's Edge, this is Jiho. Patch me through to Coalition headquarters. Priority 1. The response took 15 minutes. When the Coalition representative appeared on his screen, Jiho did not wait for pleasantries. This is Captain Jiho of the Horizon's Edge. I'm at Colony Theta 9. The distress call was legitimate. The Velran colony was attacked by the Krathel Dominion. 73 children were taken for what appears to be genetic harvesting and experimentation. I have footage, witness testimony, and physical evidence. I'm requesting immediate military intervention. The Coalition representative was a Thalaxian, a species that looked like tall, thin mantises with elaborate crests. She regarded Jiho with compound eyes that showed no emotion. Captain, your unauthorized presence at this location has been noted. The emergency session has reviewed your initial report. We will be forming a committee to investigate these allegations and determine the appropriate response. A committee? Jiho repeated flatly. These are serious accusations against a Coalition member species. We must follow proper protocols. They took children, Jiho said, and his voice was very, very quiet. How long will this committee take? These matters are complex, Captain. We estimate 6 to 8 standard cycles for preliminary investigations, followed by... Jiho cut the transmission. Dr. Hana had emerged from the shelter and heard the conversation. They're not coming. No, Jiho agreed. They're not. What are we going to do? Jiho looked at the ruins around them. He thought about the 73 children who were, right now, being taken somewhere horrible. He thought about the parents in that shelter who would never recover from this, whether their children came back or not. He made a decision that would change the course of human history. Get me a secure line to Earth Fleet Command, highest encryption, and get me Admiral Sora specifically. Sir, Admiral Sora is the head of the entire Earth Defense Fleet. She doesn't take calls from research vessel captains. She'll take this one. Jiho began walking back to the ship. Tell her I have evidence of mass kidnapping of children by a hostile species, and the Coalition is refusing to act. Tell her I need the fleet. Taeyang looked shocked. Captain, you can't be serious. You're talking about starting a war. No, Jiho said. The Krathul started a war when they decided children were acceptable targets. I'm talking about finishing it. The call went through 20 minutes later. Admiral Sora appeared on the screen in the ship's communication room. She was 53 years old with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen more combat than most people could imagine. She listened to Jiho's report without interrupting. She watched the footage from the colony security systems. She read the witness statements. When Jiho finished, there was a long silence. You understand what you're asking me to do? Admiral Sora finally said. Yes, ma'am. You're asking me to deploy the Earth Defense Fleet into Coalition space without authorization, to engage a Coalition member species in open combat, to directly defy the Galactic Council's jurisdiction. Yes, ma'am. The political consequences will be severe. We could be expelled from the Coalition. Trade sanctions, diplomatic isolation. Earth could find itself alone in a hostile galaxy. I understand, ma'am. Admiral Sora leaned forward. Tell me, Captain, in your professional opinion, if we wait for the Coalition to act, what happens to those children? Jiho met her eyes. They're already being experimented on. In 6 days, when the Coalition finishes their committee meeting, those children will be so changed we might not be able to save them. Or they'll be dead, or they'll be turned into something that wishes it was dead. And if we go in now, we might save them. We might not. But at least we'll have tried. At least they'll know someone came. Admiral Sora nodded slowly. I have a son, Captain. He's 7 years old. His name is Junho. Every night I think about what I'm protecting. It's not just Earth, it's not just humanity. It's his right to grow up safe. To never know the kind of fear those Velrin children are feeling right now. She paused. Send me everything you have. Every piece of evidence. Every testimony. I need to brief the Joint Chiefs and the President. Yes, ma'am. Captain Jiho? Yes, ma'am. I want you to know something. In 30 years of military service, I have never disobeyed a direct order. I have never put my career before my duty, but I will not let those children suffer while bureaucrats debate procedure. Her eyes hardened. If the President says no, I'll retire and take the fleet with me. One way or another, we're coming. Start tracking the Krathul ships. Find out where they took those children. We'll be there in 72 hours. The transmission ended. Dr. Hana let out a breath she had been holding. She's really going to do it. Yes, Jiho said. She is. Taeyang was already working at his console. Captain, I'm tracking multiple Krathul energy signatures. They left a trail in subspace. I can follow it. Do it. As the horizon's edge prepared to pursue the Krathul, Jiho stood on the bridge and looked at the colony one last time. The survivors were being evacuated to a Coalition medical station. They would be safe, but they would never be whole again. He thought about what Admiral Sora had said, about her son, about protection. Humans knew what it meant to be prey. Their own history was soaked in blood. They had spent thousands of years learning to survive on a planet that tried to kill them at every opportunity. They had learned to hunt, to fight, to endure things that would break most species. And somewhere along the way, they had learned something else. They had learned that strength meant nothing if you did not use it to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Krathul were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The SOS that summoned the Deathworlders' fleet of Retribution against aliens. The news spread across human space like wildfire. Captain Jiho's report reached Earth Fleet Command, and from there it could not be contained. Someone leaked it, maybe deliberately, maybe because they knew humanity needed to see what had happened. Within 6 hours, every major news network in human space was broadcasting the footage from Colony Theta 9. The images of children being taken, the sounds of parents screaming, the laughter of the Krathul soldiers. The response was immediate and volcanic. On Earth, protests erupted outside Coalition embassy buildings. On Mars, the colonial government passed an emergency resolution offering full military support. The asteroid belt colonies, often independent and difficult to coordinate, united behind a single message. Bring our fleet. Bring our fury. In the halls of Earth Fleet Command on Geneva Station, Admiral Sora stood before the Joint Chiefs and the President. The meeting was supposed to be about procedure, about careful consideration about the political implications of military action. It lasted 12 minutes. We're going, Admiral Sora said flatly. The only question is whether we go with official authorization or without it. But we are going. The President, a woman named Yunji, who had spent 20 years in diplomatic service before taking office, looked at the footage one more time. She was silent for a long moment. Then she stood. The Galactic Coalition has failed in its most basic duty. It has failed to protect the innocent. As of this moment, I am authorizing Protocol Omega. Admiral, you have full authority to deploy the fleet. Bring those children home, and make sure everyone in this galaxy knows that humanity does not tolerate this. Admiral Sora saluted. Yes, Madam President. The mobilization began immediately. Earth Defense Fleet activated every available warship. The call went out to the colonies, and they answered. Mars sent 12 cruisers and a carrier group. The Belt sent a swarm of fast attack ships, small but deadly. Europa Station contributed its defense platforms. Even the distant colonies near Neptune sent what they could. In the shipyards above Earth, crews worked around the clock. Weapons were loaded. Armor was checked. Medical bays were stocked for mass casualties. The fleet was preparing not just for battle, but for rescue operations on a scale humanity had never attempted. Colonel Dong-hae was called from his training station on Luna. He commanded the Death's Head Battalion, the most elite Marine unit in human space. His soldiers were volunteers, every single one. They had earned their name in the Titan uprising 12 years ago, when they had held a mining colony against impossible odds until reinforcements arrived. Now they were being asked to do something different, not to hold ground but to take it, to board hostile vessels and fight in close quarters against an enemy they had never faced before. Dong-hae gathered his officers in the briefing room. "We're going to hit Krathul holding facilities. We're going to breach, we're going to clear, and we're going to extract every single captive we find. The Krathul are soldiers. They're armed. They're trained. They're also predators who think they're at the top of the food chain." He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We're going to teach them different." Dr. Nari, a military strategist and xenopsychologist, was brought in to brief the fleet commanders. She had spent years studying alien species, their capabilities, their psychology. Now she stood before a room full of admirals and captains and shared something that most of them had never truly understood. Earth is classified in the Galactic database as a Class 12 death world, she began. There are only 15 planets in known space with that classification. Most sentient species evolved on Class 4 or Class 5 worlds. Gentle planets, stable climates, few predators, abundant resources. She brought up an image of Earth from space. Humans evolved on a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Extreme temperature swings, violent weather, tectonic activity that reshapes continents, an atmosphere with high oxygen content that allows for massive wildfires, and predators. So many predators, the admirals listened. They knew all this, but hearing it laid out systematically was different. Because of this, humans have capabilities that most species lack. You can run for hours without stopping. Most aliens tire after minutes. You can survive injuries that would kill others. You can process pain and keep fighting. You can eat things that are toxic to other species. Your immune systems treat most alien diseases as minor inconveniences. She paused. But the most important difference is psychological. Humans are pack hunters. You evolved to work together, to coordinate, to sacrifice for the group. You have an instinct for protecting the weak. And when someone threatens what you protect, you become the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Commander Seung, captain of the dreadnought Retribution, raised his hand. "What about the Krathul? What are we facing?" Dr. Nari brought up files on the Krathul Dominion. "They're predators, but from a Class 6 world. Easier than Earth. They're strong by galactic standards. Their scales provide natural armor. They have claws and teeth. They're used to being feared. But they've never fought a species from a true death world." "How do they fight?" another captain asked. "They rely on shock and intimidation. They expect their prey to run or submit. When they meet resistance, they escalate to overwhelming force. They don't expect sustained combat. They don't expect prey that fights back harder when cornered." "Then they're in for a surprise," Dong-hae muttered. The fleet assembled over 3 days. 47 warships formed the core. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, destroyers. 200 support vessels carried supplies, medical facilities, and transport capacity for freed captives. 15,000 Marines prepared for boarding actions. It was the largest military deployment in human history, and it was moving toward a target deep in Coalition space, without Coalition permission, to attack a Coalition member species. The Galactic Coalition sent increasingly urgent messages, warnings, threats, promises of sanctions and consequences. Admiral Sora read each one and filed it away without responding. Finally, 3 days after the mobilization began, she sent a single reply. "To the Galactic Coalition, we received your messages. We acknowledge your concerns. However, we will not stand by while children suffer because you need 6 days to have a meeting. We are proceeding to Krathul space. We will free the captives. We will hold the guilty accountable. When we are finished, we will submit a full report. Admiral Sora, Earth Defense Fleet." The Coalition response was predictable. Outrage. Demands that humanity stand down. Threats of expulsion. Admiral Sora held a fleet-wide address. Every ship, every soldier, every crew member saw her face on their screens. "You all know why we're here," she began. "You've seen the footage. You've read the reports. 73 children were taken from a peaceful colony. They were taken because they were defenseless, because no one thought they were worth protecting. She paused. The coalition has chosen to wait, to debate, to follow procedure. That's their choice. But it's not ours. We are human. We come from Earth. And on Earth we learned a long time ago that evil flourishes when good people do nothing. We are not going to Krathul space to conquer. We are not going for resources or territory or revenge. We are going because somewhere out there children are afraid. They're hurt. They're crying for someone to save them. And we're going to be the someone who comes. She straightened. The coalition says we're young, that we're reckless, that we don't understand how things work in galactic politics. Maybe they're right. But we understand something they seem to have forgotten. We understand that protecting the innocent is not a political question. It's a moral imperative. So we're going, and we're not asking permission. If the coalition wants to punish us for it later, they can try. But right now, right this moment, we're the only hope those children have. Let's make sure we don't fail them. The fleet erupted in cheers. On every ship, crew members stood and saluted their admiral. Among the fleet was the Horizon's Edge, still a research vessel but now armed with everything the military could spare. Captain Jiho stood on his bridge, watching the massive fleet around him. Ships of war. Thousands of soldiers, all because he had decided to answer a distress call. Dr. Hana stood beside him. Do you think we're doing the right thing? I think we're doing the only thing, Jiho replied. The right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same. Lieutenant Taeyang spoke up from his station. Captain, I have the Krathul trail locked in. They went to a station in their outer territories. It looks like a logistics hub. Send the coordinates to Admiral Sora. The fleet turned as one, dozens of massive ships aligning their vectors. Then together, they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the coalition scrambled to respond. Emergency sessions were called. Ambassadors were summoned. Threats were drafted, but the human fleet was already gone, racing through the void toward Krathul space. In the holding cells of Krathul Station Kree 7, the Velrin children huddled together in the darkness. They had been poked and prodded and scanned. They had heard the Krathul discussing their genetic profiles, talking about them like they were objects, resources to be exploited. The oldest child, a girl barely into adolescence, held the younger ones close. She sang to them in their own language, the lullabies their parents had sung. She told them to be brave. She told them someone would come. She did not be the SOS that summoned the Deathworlders' fleet of Retribution against aliens' Krathul Station. Kiari 7 hung in space like a malignant spider. All sharp angles and dark metal. It was huge, capable of housing 50,000 individuals and processing cargo from a dozen systems. The Krathul used it as a central hub for their harvesting operations. Ships came and went carrying their stolen goods. Station Commander Rekith stood in his control center, reviewing the latest intake manifests. The Velrin specimens were processing well. Preliminary scans showed promising genetic markers. The younglings would fetch high prices from the experimentation facilities, and the raw genetic material would fuel their hybrid soldier program for years. It was good business. The Krathul had been doing this for centuries. The Coalition knew, of course. Everyone knew. But the Coalition valued stability over justice, procedure over action. By the time they finished their investigations and hearings, the evidence was always gone. The captives were already processed, and the Krathul made sure to spread enough wealth around to keep the right officials quiet. Rekith was reviewing the next target list when his sensor officer made a strange sound. Commander, I'm detecting multiple contacts at the edge of scanner range. Rekith did not even look up. Pirates? No, sir. These signatures are too large, too organized. The officer's voice rose slightly. Sir, I'm counting at least 40 capital ships. They just dropped out of FTL. Now Rekith looked up. What? Who? The answer came in the form of a transmission that broadcast on every frequency, in every major galactic language. Krathul Station Kree 7, this is Admiral Sora of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are harboring captives taken illegally from Coalition-protected worlds. You have engaged in genetic harvesting, experimentation on sentience without consent, and trafficking of children. You will immediately release all captives and surrender your facility for inspection. You have 1 hour to comply. Rekith stared at the screen. Earth? He had to search his database to even remember who the humans were. A young species, new to the Coalition. No significant military power. No political influence, he laughed. This is some kind of joke. His communications officer looked uncertain. Sir, the sensor readings are real. Those ships are there, and they're armed. Then we'll show these children what happens when they threaten their betters. Charge weapons. Launch fighters. Send a message to the main fleet. Tell them we're under attack by the humans and we need reinforcement. Sir, shouldn't we at least respond to their demands? Respond? Vricketh's scales rippled with amusement. Fine, send them this. The Krathul Dominion does not take orders from prey species. Go home before you get hurt. The message was transmitted. On the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, Admiral Sora received it and nodded as if she had expected nothing else. All ships, she said calmly. You are weapons free. Disable their shields and propulsion. I want that station intact and everyone on it alive for trial. But if they continue to resist after we breach, you may use appropriate force. The human fleet advanced. The Krathul station opened fire first, its defensive batteries launching missiles and particle beams. The Krathul expected the human ships to evade, to scatter, to try to avoid damage. The human ships did not evade. They simply took the hits. The Krathul weapons impacted against human shields and armor, and barely made a dent. Vricketh watched in growing horror as his most powerful batteries, weapons that could cripple a coalition cruiser in seconds, splashed harmlessly against the human vessels. What are those ships made of? His tactical officer checked the scans. Sir, their armor is incredibly thick. Their hulls are reinforced beyond anything in our database. It's like they built their ships expecting to take punishment. They had. Human ships were designed by people who lived on a high-gravity world, who expected things to break, who understood that anything in space should be built to survive the worst possible conditions. While other species built elegant ships optimized for efficiency, humans built ships that could take a beating and keep fighting. The human response was devastating. Railguns, weapons that used magnetic acceleration to fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds, tore through the station's shields. Missiles, each one guided by sophisticated AI, found weak points and exploited them. In 5 minutes, the station's defensive capabilities were reduced to nothing. Admiral, their shields are down, Commander Sung reported from the Retribution. Colonel Donghae, you're clear for boarding action. Donghae grinned inside his combat armor. Marines, we're going in. Remember, we're here for the captives. Anyone who tries to stop us gets put down, but we want prisoners. Intel needs people to question. The assault shuttles launched, dozens of them racing toward the crippled station. The Krathul tried to seal their airlocks, but human boarding equipment simply cut through. Within minutes, Marines were flooding into the station. The Krathul had never faced humans in close combat before. It was educational, in the worst possible way. A squad of Krathul soldiers took positions at a corridor junction, claws extended, weapons ready. They were predators. They were strong. They were confident. Then the humans came around the corner. The Krathul opened fire. The humans' armor absorbed the shots that hit, and the Marines moved with impossible speed. They did not fight like prey. They fought like apex predators who had evolved to hunt in packs. The engagement lasted 15 seconds. When it was over, all 6 Krathul soldiers were unconscious and bound. The humans had not lost a single Marine. This scene repeated throughout the station. Every time the Krathul tried to fight, they were overwhelmed. The humans moved through the station like a force of nature, room by room, corridor by corridor. Corporal Minho led his squad toward the holding cells. They had station schematics from engineer Yuna, who had hacked into the Krathul network and was feeding them real-time data. Left at the next junction, the cells are 2 levels down. They encountered resistance at the holding facility entrance. A dozen Krathul guards had fortified the position. The squad leader looked terrified. You cannot have them, he said in broken coalition standard. They are property of the Dominion. Minho's response was simple. Move or be moved. The Krathul raised their weapons. The humans moved first. The firefight was brief and brutal. When the smoke cleared, the Krathul were disarmed and restrained. Minho's squad breached the holding area. What they found made them stop dead. Hundreds of captives. Not just Velrin. Dozens of species all crammed into cells too small for their numbers. Children and adults all showing signs of medical experimentation, all terrified. Minho lowered his weapon and opened his helmet. He wanted them to see his face. We're human, We're from Earth. We're here to take you home. The oldest Velran child, the one who had been singing lullabies to the younger ones, looked at him with large, dark eyes. You came, she whispered. You actually came, yes, Minho said gently. We came, and we're not leaving without you. The extraction began. Marines moved through the cells, checking each captive, providing water and emergency rations, applying medical treatment where needed. They found 73 Velran children, all alive, all scared but unharmed beyond some minor medical procedures. They also found 628 other captives, different species, different ages, all victims of the Krathul harvesting program. Dr. Nari had accompanied the boarding force specifically to coordinate the rescue. She moved from cell to cell, speaking in multiple languages, calming the captives, explaining that they were safe now. One young captive, a small creature with iridescent scales, grabbed her hand. Are you really taking us home? Yes, Nari promised. Every single one of you. We're taking you home. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Sora received the reports. All captives secured. 701 individuals recovered. 14 different species. The Marines are escorting them to medical shuttles now. Casualties? 3 Marines with minor injuries. No fatalities. Sora allowed herself a small smile. And the Krathul? Station Commander Vreketh and his senior staff are in custody. We have roughly 2,000 Krathul personnel secured. They're not happy about it. I'm sure they're not. Have Engineer Yuna access their database. I want every piece of information they have. Every facility. Every ship. Every operation. If the Krathul have been doing this elsewhere, I want to know about it. Yuna's voice came through the comms. Already on it, Admiral. And sir, you're going to want to see this. They have files on 17 other harvesting sites, coordinates, schedules, everything. The bridge fell silent. 17, Sora repeated. Yes, ma'am. The Velran colony wasn't an isolated incident. This is a network, an industry. Admiral Sora stood and walked to the view screen. She looked at the crippled station, at the shuttles ferrying captives to safety, at her fleet arrayed in battle formation. Get me the fleet commanders. All of them. We're not going home yet. 1 hour later, the human fleet split into task forces. Each one received a set of coordinates. Each one had a single mission: find the harvesting sites, free the captives, secure the evidence. The Krathul Dominion was about to learn what happened when you made humanity angry. But more importantly, thousands of captives across a dozen systems were about to learn that someone had heard them. Someone had come. And that someone... The SOS that summoned the Deathworlders' fleet of Retribution against aliens. The news spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. The humans, the young species that everyone dismissed, were waging war on the Krathul Dominion, and they were winning. Over the next 6 days, human task forces hit all 17 harvesting sites. Each battle followed the same pattern. The humans arrived, offered surrender, faced rejection, and then methodically dismantled the Krathul defenses. Each site yielded hundreds more captives. Each database provided more evidence of the Krathul's crimes. By the end of the week, humanity had freed over 4,000 captives representing 23 different species. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The Krathul Dominion had been running an industrial-scale operation for decades, possibly centuries. The Galactic Coalition was in chaos. Some species praised humanity's actions, others condemned them as reckless vigilantes. The bureaucrats who had insisted on procedure and protocol found themselves facing angry questions from their own populations. Why had the coalition done nothing? Why had it taken outsiders to stop this? But the Krathul were not finished. Their leadership, seeing their entire operation collapsing, made a desperate decision. They would gather their full military fleet and crush the human forces in one decisive battle. 300 warships, the entire might of the Krathul Dominion, converged on their homeworld. Admiral Sora received the intelligence from her scouts. She stood on the bridge of the Retribution, studying the tactical display. 300 ships against her 47. Any reasonable military commander would retreat, regroup, and call for reinforcements. Admiral Sora was reasonable. She was also stubborn. All task forces, return to fleet formation. We're going to Krathul Prime. Commander Seung looked at the numbers. Admiral, those odds are irrelevant, Sora finished. We didn't come here to fight fair. We came here to finish this. If we let them regroup, if we let them survive, they'll just start again somewhere else. We end this now. The human fleet reassembled and jumped to the Krathul homeworld. When they emerged from FTL, they found themselves facing the entire Krathul armada. The Krathul commander broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was filled with rage and contempt. You have made a fatal error, humans. You are outnumbered 7-1. We will crush you and then we will come for your Earth. We will show you what it means to challenge the Krathul Dominion. Admiral Sora responded simply, You can try. The battle began with the Krathul fleet advancing in a massive formation, expecting to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. It was a tactic that had worked for them for centuries. Most species, when facing impossible odds, would break and run. Humans did not break. Humans got angry. The human ships formed a defensive sphere and met the Krathul charge head-on. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. Missiles crossed paths with particle beams. Railgun rounds tore through shields. Energy weapons carved into armor. The Krathul had numbers. The humans had ships built by people who understood that anything worth building should be built to last. While Krathul vessels crumpled under sustained fire, human ships kept fighting even with half their systems damaged. But even overwhelming firepower and superior construction could only do so much against 7-1 odds. The human fleet began taking serious damage. 2 destroyers were crippled and had to withdraw. The cruiser Dauntless lost its entire port weapons array but kept fighting anyway. Commander Sung's Retribution took the worst of it. The dreadnought had positioned itself at the center of the formation, drawing fire from dozens of Krathul ships. Its armor was scored and blackened. Multiple decks were venting atmosphere. But Xiong refused to withdraw. We hold the line, he told his crew, no matter what. On the surface of Krathul Prime, in the largest holding facility on the planet, Colonel Donghae led a desperate assault. While the fleets battled overhead, the Marines had made a combat drop to the surface. Their mission was simple and insane: breach the facility, free the captives, and get them to the extraction shuttles before the battle ended. The Krathul ground forces fought hard. This was their homeworld, and they were defending it with everything they had. But the Marines were motivated by something stronger than patriotism or duty. They were motivated by the faces of the children they had already saved, by the knowledge that more children were waiting inside that facility. Donghae led from the front, his power armor absorbing hits that would have killed an unarmored soldier. His battalion fought room by room, pushing deeper into the facility. They took casualties. They lost soldiers, but they did not stop. Corporal Minho breached a cell block and found himself face to face with the scene that would haunt his nightmares forever. Rows of medical tables, children strapped down, Krathul scientists working with casual efficiency, treating sentient beings like laboratory animals. Get them out, Minho roared to his squad. Get every single one out. The scientists tried to flee. The Marines detained them without mercy. The captives, dozens of children from multiple species, were freed and rushed toward the extraction points. In space, the battle reached its crisis point. The Retribution had taken catastrophic damage. Half its crew was dead or injured. Its shields were gone. Its weapons were failing. But it was still firing, still fighting, still holding the center of the line. Commander Xiong sat in his damaged command chair, blood running down his face from a head wound. Engineering, can we still maneuver? Barely, sir. We've lost most of our thrusters. Then use what we have. Xiong looked at the tactical display, at the Krathul dreadnought that was systematically destroying the human formation. He made his decision. All power to forward shields. All remaining thrust to main engines. I'm taking us straight at that dreadnought. His bridge crew understood immediately. Some of them protested. But Xiong was the captain and his word was final. The Retribution, burning and broken, accelerated toward the enemy flagship. The Krathul saw it coming and poured fire into it, but it was too late. The human dreadnought, built to survive anything, had just enough structural integrity left for one final act. It rammed the Krathul flagship at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a second sun. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but the sacrifice bought time. The human fleet, galvanized by Xiong's final act, pressed the attack with renewed fury. Admiral Sora watched the explosion from her bridge, her face carved from stone. She had known Xiong for 15 years. They had served together, fought together, become friends. Now he was gone. All ships, she said, her voice hard as steel. Commander Sung just gave his life for this mission. We will not let it be in vain. Focus fire on their command ships. Break their formation. End this. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, tore into the Crattle lines. Lieutenant Taeyang, now serving as tactical officer on one of the cruisers, coordinated a brilliant maneuver. The human ships suddenly shifted formation, concentrating all their fire on a single point in the Crattle sphere. The focused assault broke through and the Crattle formation collapsed. Without coordination, without unified command, the Crattle fleet began to falter. Ships tried to retreat. Others fought on alone. The battle turned from a coordinated defense into chaos. On the ground, Donghei's voice crackled over the communications network. We have the captives. All of them. Over 4,000 individuals secured. We're loading the last shuttles now. Then get off that planet, Colonel, Sora ordered. We've done what we came to do. The Marines withdrew under fire, their shuttles racing toward the waiting fleet. The last shuttle cleared the atmosphere just as the Crattle ground forces launched a final desperate assault. In space, the Crattle fleet was breaking. Some ships surrendered. Others fled toward the outer system. The ones that continued to fight were systematically disabled. Admiral Sora did not pursue the fleeing ships. She had not come here for conquest or revenge. She had come for the captives and they were secured. Cease fire, she ordered. Recall all fighters. Begin rescue operations for survivors on both sides. The battle was over. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, including the Retribution. 847 humans were dead. Another 2,000 were wounded. But the mission was complete. 4,000 captives were free. The Crattle Dominion's leadership was either dead, captured, or scattered. The evidence of their crimes filled hundreds of databases, and every species in the galaxy had watched it happen. Dr. Hana stood in one of the medical bays, treating a young captive who had been in Crattle hands for 2 years. The child was scared, traumatized, barely able to speak, but when Hana held her hand and promised she was safe now, the child believed her. Why did you come? The child asked in broken coalition standard. Why did humans help us? We have nothing to give you. Hana smiled, even though her eyes were wet with tears. Because you asked for help, and because no one else was going to. The human fleet began the long journey home, carrying thousands of freed captives. Behind them, Crattle Prime burned. Not from bombardment, but from riots. The Crattle population, learning the full extent of their leadership's crimes, had risen in revolution. The Dominion government collapsed within hours. 6 weeks after Captain Jiho had intercepted that first distress call, he stood in the halls of the Galactic Council. Admiral Sora was there too, along with Dr. Nari and